Thank you and good morning, everybody. They have me on the clock to make sure. I've got 4 politicians up here with me today, or 5 politicians, so we'll try and keep our messages succinct. This morning's session is BC Strategy for Labour Market Success. I'm honored to have 5 colleagues with me today to discuss how our government is supporting development of skilled workforce and how we're coordinating with our neighbours in Alberta to be successful on making sure there's a skilled workforce for across Western Canada and Canada in general. It's all about helping to address that growing demand in the LNG sector and other resource sectors so that we can be successful to deliver the labour and the skilled labour where we need it and the timely manner when we need it. We have worked with industry, communities, organized labour, and other levels of government. I'd like to introduce each one of our panelists for you today. I'll start with, on my immediate left, the Minister of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training and Minister responsible for Labour, Shirley Bond. Shirley has served BC Cabinet Minister for more than 12 years. Currently, she leads the Jobs Plan, the BC Jobs Plan's BC Natural Gas Workforce Strategy Committee. Welcome, Shirley.
Here.
The next delightful gentleman to her left is our Minister of Advanced Education, Amrik Virk. Minister Virk has an extensive career with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, including serving on BC's Integrated Task Force and the officer in charge of operations in Langley. Welcome, Amrik. Beside him is the Minister of Education. Really doesn't have much going on in his file these days. Minister Peter Fassbender. Minister Fassbender has a distinguished career in municipal politics. He served on Langley Council since 2003. He was elected to provincial office last year. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you.
The last minister from British Columbia, and we have to have 4 to take on the 1, that's the rule, is Minister of Aboriginal Relations and Reconciliation, who John and I are joined at the hip quite a bit, John Rustad, as we deal with issues in and around his portfolio and mine. He has served as part of the provincial government since 2005. Prior to that, he worked in the forest industry for more than 20 years. Welcome, John. And finally, we have a colleague from Alberta, Minister of Energy, Diana McQueen. Diane, thanks first of all for being a sponsor of this conference. I think it really shows a knitting partnership between BC and Alberta when it comes to the energy sector. Minister McQueen has served as a Minister of Environment and Sustainable Resource Development. She helped implement a comprehensive environmental program in oil sands region. She spearheaded the creation of a single regulatory process for oil and gas developments in Alberta. Minister McQueen, it's great to have you, and welcome to British Columbia.
Thank you.
The way we're going to start this out today, we're going to give each member of the panel a few minutes to share their perspectives, starting with Minister Bond, followed by Minister Virk, Minister Fassbender, Minister Rustad, and Minister McQueen. Shirley?
Well, thanks very much, Rich. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues and with all of you today. And in my role as the Minister responsible for Jobs, Tourism, Skills Training and Labour, the primary work that we've been doing over the last year is to work together very differently in government, and it's been a pleasure and at times an uphill battle for us as we've tried to reshape how we do things, first of all in government. And my job was to look at an overall skills training plan for the province for a 10-year period of time, and obviously with a very particular focus on liquefied natural gas. So working together with Minister Fassbender, Virk, Rustad, Coleman, in a very collaborative way, we are very proud to have created the skills blueprint that you heard the previous panel talk about. And I want to just speak a little bit, as each minister will speak to their own role in the blueprint. Mine is very much related to the reform of apprenticeship in the province. One of my jobs was to ensure that we had a review of the Industry Training Authority. We spend over $7 billion every year of taxpayer dollars on training and education in the province. And what the Premier said to us was, it's time we took a look at how we spend that money and we'd line it up with labour market data. So one of the major shifts that we're making in our blueprint is a data-driven system where we will use the latest and the most up-to-date information that we can get, working in partnership with industry, to develop our plans, our training plans. And it means that money isn't going to leave government anymore simply out of the Ministry of Advanced Education or my ministry for that matter. We're actually going to look at the money that we have, how we invest it, and we're going to line it up with the job needs of today and tomorrow. So it's been a very aggressive, hardworking group. We released the plan probably about 3 weeks ago or so. The feedback has been fantastic from our liquefied natural gas partners, from organized labor, institutions who are ready to step up and be partners. So it is about a different way of doing business, not just inside government, but obviously in our institutions and across training organizations. One of the things that's critical to me is looking at apprenticeship, how we do that differently, how we see better outcomes. And we want to lead the country, and the Premier has given us the job of looking at harmonization of standards and mobility. And so we're working, as you've heard earlier, with our partners in Alberta and Saskatchewan. A very constructive working relationship with Minister Lukazik and others in Alberta as we work on these issues together. So the blueprint is out, we're excited about it, and our job now is to make sure we have the workforce that's necessary. LNG alone, about 100,000 new jobs. And if you look at our labor market demands over the next, up to 2022, we're going to see 1 million job openings in our province. And that's a combination of an aging demographic, retirements, and new job growth. So my job is basically the oversight of the plan, bringing together the various ministries. I couldn't tell you how proud I am of the work that's been done and look forward to moving aggressively into the implementation phase in the next number of weeks and months.
Thanks, Shirley. Just to remind you, you can send questions to the stage, otherwise you're going to be dealing with my easier questions for the panel that I have on my
Sure.
Minister Virk.
Mr. Coleman, thank you. I have a simple job. I think Mr. Bond alluded to that, 1 million new jobs. I have a simple job of making sure those 1 million individuals that are going to take those 1 million jobs in the post-secondary system, that it's aligned to train and retrain. This is not only about young people, it's retooling that midlife learner that comes in. So it required a generational change in how we do post-secondary education. So what we're doing in the next several years is targeting $250 million, a full quarter of the budget in the Ministry of Advanced Education, to those high demand occupations all across British Columbia. So this is from physicians to pipe fitters, from electricians to engineers. We want to make sure that we're training the right people at the right time at the right place. So that's a generational change. All of our universities, all of our Board of Governors, all of our university presidents are entirely on board on that. It's a full court press by every institution in this province. It's one system, and we're absolutely committed to work together. We're making sure that any wait lists, we're putting another $6.5 million to make sure that all those wait lists in the high priority job market are addressed as soon as practical. So it's a combination of reengineering existing money, but it's also about new facilities. In the last several weeks, we broke ground on two new trade training facilities, one in Vancouver Island, the other one in the interior, another $185 million over the next 3 years towards trade facilities and skills equipment. We want to revamp the student loan program. How do we get the right students to the right place at the right time with a combination of grants to help them move, to buy tools, mid-completion grants, completion grants, and when they work in the right sector in the right place to help them pay off that loan, or loan forgiveness. Can you imagine a loan forgiveness program for a welder in an inner area of this province that we need that individual? So it's a combination of reengineering what we have. It's a combination of new money as well, and we're absolutely committed. I believe it's absolutely generational that we're making sure that we're using the data from Minister Bond's ministry. Where are the jobs? When are the jobs? How many do you need? What are their skill sets? And are our universities, colleges, and institutions graduating the right people at the right time at the right place? We are absolutely committed to doing that.
Thanks, Emric. Minister Fassbender.
Thank you very much, Minister Coleman, and to my colleagues on the stage. Both of them have talked about how well we work together within our 4 ministries, along with Minister Coleman's ministry, to really take a look at the future of education. And it doesn't just begin and end at K-12. It is an ongoing transition into the future, and really developing a culture with our young people that education is a lifelong journey. It doesn't begin and end in a particular place. We see huge opportunities with our Aboriginal students to provide them with the tools that they need to be successful. And we see LNG as an immediate opportunity that has tremendous potential. And there's been a number of young people that were brought here from the north by some of the proponents and our industry supporters to show them the wealth of opportunities, and they are going to be ambassadors going back and talking to their peers. But what are we doing in K-12? Well, we are also re-engineering our system from kindergarten to grade 12, looking at new curriculum, putting actual life skills as part of that overall development. We're looking at new educational pathways so that young people see the wealth of opportunities that are available to them even earlier. We're engaging parents. My parliamentary secretary, Jane Thornthwaite, is working with parent groups to get parents to think differently about what a career really means, and we're changing the dialogue. One of the key goals that we have in the blueprint is we're going to be doubling our ACET seats for young people in the next 2 years to provide real, tangible opportunities where they can transition into a meaningful trade. We're looking at dual credit programs so that students don't have to redo certain training, that they can do it in high school, then move into post-secondary and get into the job market much faster. We're looking at our grad requirements so that we make it relevant to today and tomorrow's society. And we're working, Larry Espy is here, he's been traveling the province and started in the north in his own district in developing significant partnerships with business and industry to provide the opportunities, because we know we can't do it on our own. We need the support of the business and industry groups to do that.
Thank you.
And so we're doing a lot of those things. Our skills exploration course, where young people, and a small part of it is downstairs, most of you have seen it, where they can start to look at carpentry, welding, electrical, plumbing, all of the things that are jobs today, not tomorrow, but they're there today, and more coming tomorrow. And so we're really going to accelerate those opportunities, working with advanced education, jobs, Aboriginal affairs, to say we have real jobs for young people that are meaningful, and we also want to see them to help build the communities of the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Minister Rustad.
Thanks, Minister Coleman, and it is a pleasure to be here. And I obviously want to start by recognizing that we're on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, and particularly the Squamish and Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh. It's an exciting time, really, in British Columbia, and as my my other colleagues here have said, the opportunity to sort of change training, change our approach, and to really try to align with industry is phenomenal. And what we're doing with First Nations is similar. We have taken a different approach over the last number of years with our First Nation partners, and trying to get a more fulsome engagement in the economy, in employment, in the training, in the various components, especially issues like the environment. And so over the last number of years now, we've actually gone to a place where we had virtually no agreements to we have well over 200 agreements with First Nations. And many of those agreements include opportunities around training and employment. Mm-hmm. And so as we look at the re-engineering of education, and as we look at aligning the jobs with the training, it fits in very well with what we're doing with our First Nation partners. Particularly with liquefied natural gas, when I travel throughout the province and speak with First Nations, they're all very, very keen on wanting to be able to participate, especially in the training and employment. It's not just about training for the sake of training, but how do we make sure it comes with a job, and how do we make sure it leads to meaningful opportunities. And so working with my colleagues, we've been looking at how we can develop these kinds of strategies. So when you look at the agreements we have, for example, on liquefied natural gas now, we have a couple agreements, three agreements now on the coast where our facilities are going to be located. We have a partnership with the Pacific Trails Pipeline where 15 First Nations have signed on in support of that. We have a number of economic benefit agreements and other types of things up with Treaty 8. But all of these it's important to recognize that we need to keep doing the work. We need to keep updating those agreements. We need to make sure that we listen to the concerns, particularly things like environment, and bring them in, but also that we address what the future generation needs are. And that's where training, I think, is so important. Right from the K to 12 straight through, and especially where industry needs to work with us and help to bring those jobs to fruition. So it's a very exciting time in the province. 1 million jobs, as Minister Bond has mentioned, the 100,000 potential with LNG. And when you look at our Aboriginal population, the fastest growing, more than 50% under the age of 25. They truly are a workforce for the future. They live in the areas where these developments are, and it's a great opportunity for a marriage of the changes that we're bringing with the potential of the new industry. So it's an exciting time. I very much look forward to the questions that will come.
Thanks, Minister Rustad. Minister McQueen.
Well, thank you, and Minister Coleman, it's great to be back in Vancouver with you on another panel. It was just a couple of months ago we were on a Canadian energy strategy panel together, and ministers, it's great to be with you here today. It's really interesting listening to all of you speak, and it sounds like we're back at home, because the cross-ministry work that you're doing, certainly led by your Premier, is the kind of work that we're doing in Alberta. When we look at certainly the New West partnership that we have between Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and Alberta, and the economic powerhouse that we all are collectively, but individually as provinces, there's so much that we can do together. And I think that's the strength of the New West partnership and the strength of the three provinces and what we bring to the nation and indeed globally. And so as we move forward with that, we look at what the project British Columbia has under you, Rich, and your team with Premier Clark. Certainly Alberta has said, and I've said to you as well, the support that we have and show to you with regards to the LNG projects are very important, and we're certainly very supportive of them in Alberta. When we think about what that means for your province, what that means for certainly Alberta as a supplier of gas as well, when we look at your Montney play or Duvernay play, how that all interrelates together, the work that we're doing, of course, with regards to the oil sands and moving products to market, certainly very, very important to us. But I think today what really is important, and Minister, you talked about it with the relationship you have with Minister Lukaszuk on the training piece, is important for all of us. And so as we work with communities, as we work with our industry partners, with First Nations, all of us as together as a collective community, to make sure that we're aware of what are the projects that we're doing in certainly British Columbia, Alberta, Western Canada, so that as we look to training, that we can coordinate some of that and coordinate some of the projects. I look in Alberta, and we're about 12% of the Canadian labor force, but we're 20% of the apprentice training in Alberta. And so there's a lot of work that we do and continue to do. But as we look at Western Canada, the three provinces, the work that we're going to be doing, rather than stealing labor from each other, how do we continue to grow more labor, attract more, first of all, jobs for our people in our provinces, for Canadians, but then on immigration files as well, which will be extremely important for all of us. And so I think the partnership coming here today, the partnerships and the discussions that we continue to have with the working group, with Minister Coleman on the projects that we're working on, pipeline, you're working on with LNG, this really shows what the New West partnership, Tilma, all of those things that were set in early days, the importance of all of that work that both governments, all three governments, have laid the foundation, really as we each individually as provinces bring our projects forward, but collectively to support each other. All of these pieces are pieces of the puzzle that we'll need for that each of us will be successful. And I know that as Alberta, we want, when British Columbia is successful, Saskatchewan is, all of the provinces, we all are collectively. So this is a great opportunity for Alberta to be able to support certainly British Columbia with some of the issues you'll have federally on transportation issues and others, but also to be able to support our province to be able to supply gas as well. So appreciate being here today.
Thanks, Diane. And my first question is for you. We have northern communities that will be affected by growth, particularly in the northwest of the province, if we're successful on liquefied natural gas. What lessons has Alberta learned for that type of growth that we can draw on?
Yeah, and that's a great question. We were talking with, earlier this morning, we had a meeting with Chevron talking about some of the work that they're doing in Alberta and some of the work they're doing with your LNG, and really talking about lessons learned, because quite frankly, those are some of the most important pieces we can talk about. When we look at other parts of the province and we learn from the Wood Buffalo, Fort McMurray area, how do we make sure when we bring these big projects, you'll know that when you're successful with LNG, these are huge projects, that's bringing the infrastructure for the employment and the opportunities. But then there's the communities you need to look at, and whether it's provincial responsibilities for building communities or municipal responsibilities, to be able to lay that out. We've got an oil sands secretariat, which is cross ministries, which sounds the work you're doing, so that as we build these communities, we're also looking at the social, economical, all of the municipal needs as well. What's the provincial responsibility? And so I would say some of the lessons learned is to do that up front now, as it sounds like you're doing planning for that and working with the municipalities. And then from the province and the industry perspective is giving enough heads up to the municipalities, the citizens, First Nations, so that they can plan their communities as well. I think it's that planning, building strong communities, attracting the labor force and doing the training is some of the lessons that we've learned. And I think some of the things that certainly in the labor piece, as we've trained so many apprenticeships, we can continue to share as we do and collaborate.
Great, thank you. The first question from the audience I have on top of that one is for Minister Bond or Minister Verk. And the question is based, how is British Columbia working with First Nations for education and skills training? What are the direct engagement programs that you anticipate? And John, you may have some insight into this one as well.
Well, Mr. Coleman, if I might take that, first of all, I'm not satisfied until such time that the First Nation graduation rate is no longer an issue, that it's the same as every other group in British Columbia. So with that, we're working with all the First Nation educations, Finesse, Guyala, the different groups that represent those education groups. We have to deliver training in a different way. Can we deliver training to the location? Our mobile trade training facilities, we have the Nicola Valley Institute of Technology with their mobile training facilities. Let's take the training to the trainee wherever possible as one solution. Let's build those skills and the kind of programs that Minister Fassbender is talking about. Can we do additional ACID programs? Can we find your fit a lot earlier? Can we retrain that educator and that counselor to help that student find their fit a lot earlier while they're in high school to make sure they pass high school? So it's a combination of finding your fit, the right training, the right counseling, and the right flexibility in our post-secondary system, understanding not every learner learns in the same way. So we have to make sure that we do that. And I'm a big proponent of taking the training to the trainee.
Thank you. John, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, if I may, just quick, and I think, you know, what Minister Verk has said is a reflection as well of some discussions that we've had with First Nations in partnership. But I think important as we move forward and shape this, we've got to make sure there's that opportunity to be able to go out and have the input in terms of trying to customize and shape where we can and be responsive to the various needs. And you know, I've heard that time and time again from First Nations, you know, certainly across with LNG, but across the province, that training part is important, but they want to be able to have some say and input. And I think, you know, the programs that Minister Verk has suggested are a result of much of that input that we've already received, but we need to be able to continue that sort of a process.
Thanks, John. The next question is, are there plans to have trades facilities expanded in the north? Surrounding northern communities can benefit from the spin-off, particularly if they can train closer to home.
Mr. Coleman, absolutely. As we prioritize our training dollars for facilities, it's going to be a joint process with all ministries. Is that new training dollar aligned with the job market? So absolutely, a quarter of our new spending is going to be towards the northern facilities, and there's a number of them that are in the approval processes right now. We want to train as close to home as possible. If they train close to home as possible, they stay home close to possible.
Do you want anything to add to that, any of you? Peter?
And we're looking at the partnership side of this with industry, as I mentioned, where we don't always have to build the facilities. We have to take advantage of industry, what they already have. And so we've had some great success with school districts where they partnered with industry. The students have gone out of the schools into the community and been exposed and been able to use the latest equipment, which we probably can't continue to afford to put in schools, and that's why those partnerships are absolutely critical for the future.
Thank you. The next question from the audience is obviously about extra trades training, which is part of what you just talked about, and the possibility of taking trains to the community like camps and what have you. But this one is really about a challenge which would allow us to do that. And the challenge for colleges is to find trades instructors. Does the government have a strategy to help recruit people from industry to teach in these institutions? Maybe Shirley, seeing as you wrote the strategy, maybe we'll start with you.
Well, one of the things that I know Peter is working on is that very issue, that very often you need a trades person who is exceptionally skilled at their trade but may not have a teaching degree. And so there have been barriers for that person being involved in the K-12 system. And one of the specific initiatives under the Skills Blueprint is to deal with that issue. And so Peter might want to comment further, but we're going to need instructors, we're going to need partnerships with industry. And further to what Amrik just said, taxpayers, there's only one taxpayer. And to expect that we're going to expand training institutions all across the province and keep up with the latest technology, it's not going to happen out of a single taxpayer's pocket. So we have to be creative and innovative and partner with industry. And we do need to see tradespeople who are exceptional at what they do have the opportunity to be involved in teaching our young people. And so we have a very specific strategy, Peter, about how to do that.
Yeah, if I can add, Minister Coleman, really quickly, when I was...
This one short, Peter. I just received a whole bunch more questions. I'm looking at my clock down here.
We saw a young man, 32 years old, an auto mechanic, great tradesman. There was a shortage in a school. He got a letter of approval to go in. He was a fabulous teacher. Didn't have a teaching certificate, but that's the kind of thing we're going to be working on. We have to look at our labor agreements to facilitate that. But why not use the people that are passionate who also want to share that passion with other young people?
Thanks, Peter. Diane, you might want to, because you've had some very interesting success in taking the trainer to the trainee in Alberta. Maybe you could share that experience with us particularly, because you had some success with this, haven't you? Sure,
absolutely. And if you look at what Peter's talking about, and if you look at in the high school, we've had a great deal of success that started in the early years with the RAP program, the Registered Apprenticeship Program, but has now grown into many of our, by the time they finish grade 12, our students have either first or second year of their apprentice program completed. That's a partnership with the communities. Certainly to go and do some work experience there to get the practical work, but also much like you have with regards to the Northern Alberta Institute Technology in Southern, certainly with regards to the mobile training units, being able to come to some of the rural and remote communities with regards to doing the training. It has made a huge difference for us, as well as some of the work that we're doing now with regards to First Nations training as well, and making sure there's as with BC, a really untapped group of potential employees that we really want in our workforce as well. And so how do we do exactly like you've spoken about, train differently? And so certainly for us, there's a number of different, with regards to train the trainer, that's another one, because we know in the education system it is a challenge with regards to having a certified teacher, but there's opportunities to have those partnerships together. And so it's always something that we're willing to share, because we've got lots we can learn from you, and vice versa, I think, the successes that we've each had.
Thank you. Now, the next question, I'm going to call it a softball question, because I think it is, but it comes from, it's to the whole panel, so you can each choose to speak about it or not. Basically is, what role will you have in regards to safety in this workforce?
Well, I can start. I mean, I can start. I'm the minister responsible for WorkSafe, and safety is our #1 priority, and we need to start early, teaching young people and children today on the floor downstairs in the trade show. Part of what we talk about is when you learn to be a tradesperson in this province or any other profession, you start with having a safe workplace attitude. We're making some changes at WorkSafe. We're looking at how it's more relevant. So it's a #1 priority for us.
I think it'd be safe to say, and I'll let the others of you comment on this, because Alberta's had the same experience, I think, Diane, is that this industry, oil and gas industry, probably had a tough safety record maybe 15 years ago, but has now become one of the safest industries in the world, because everywhere you go, no matter how many times you visit a site, you get a safety briefing.
Well, Richie, if I may,
I think you've been through that, have you?
Well, I've been there. I was in Alberta for 15 years of my career originally, but I've seen that. But it's that attitude prevails. Every industry where I go to, whether it's in oil and gas or it's mining, the first motto is always safety. And I see that replicated right at the universities and institutions at the colleges when those students are learning. Safety is at the top. And from then becomes instruction. So I see that attitude starts early in shop classes in K-12, it comes to the post-secondary, and it goes to the job site. So we start that attitude from K-12 to post-secondary industry, and I think that's the way we're going to be successful.
Okay.
Ditto.
Ditto? That's the most profound thing you said today, Pete.
Thank you very much.
And the shortest, too.
The question from the audience here is to the panel as well, and it says, will BC be competing for the same labor force with Alberta oil sands or is there a coordination effort?
So I'll
Maybe
take
you
us,
could touch
and,
on-
and maybe Diane
maybe
wants to
Diane-
comment.
maybe you and
yeah.
Diane can handle.
Well, one of the things that we've been, we certainly have seen a drain of some of our workforce to Alberta. There's no doubt about it. It's had a red-hot economy, and IT's Minister Luke Hasek and my other colleagues that I work with all the time that now it's time for us to attract them back. But we are looking at a coordinated approach. It really is about training differently, training more, being more inclusive, because Alberta is going to continue to have significant labor demands, as is British Columbia and Saskatchewan. We're the hot economies across the country. And that's why the New West Partnership, which Minister McQueen has referenced a number of times, is so valuable. We work together. We're talking about harmonizing our standards, looking at mobility. We don't want to be poaching each other's workforce. And so we are having those discussions. They're tough ones to have, but I've said to my colleagues in Alberta, it's time for us to repatriate some of those workers, but we want to do that in a collaborative way.
Yeah, I think we'll always have that fun provincial rivalry, and we're fortunate in Alberta, Western Canada, but in Alberta I'll speak from, with regards to the abundant resources and opportunities in the workforce and the company's investment and a very strong economy for people to come and attract from across the nation. But in saying that, we want to make sure that together we plan this so that we actually can look at this. We have a number of big projects, all of us, and which is good for each province and the nation, but we want to be able to make sure that it's affordable so that we still remain competitive. And I think that's important for all of us to remain competitive, to bring on the projects we want. It's a global economy now, so we will work together as we have and continue to have those discussions on how do we collectively train together, what can we learn from each other. We've learned a great deal on apprentice training, but how, when we can no longer attract the people that we need from within our provinces and in our nation, how do we collectively work on immigration and making sure that we're doing that? And some of it comes really with coordinations of projects. I know in Alberta we're starting to do this more with our companies when they're building upgraders and doing projects, so scheduling some of that so it can be coordinated. But it's something I think that's one of the foundations when we looked at New West Partnership and we looked at Tilma and all of those things, is that how do we coordinate that? And this is now more important for all of us, especially to be competitive on the global scale, because the companies can take their capital and move it anywhere now.
Peter?
And Rich, if I can, very quickly, I think we're developing a Western Canadian strategy. We are going to attract good people from across the country, but our first priority, as Shirley has said, is to develop jobs for our own citizens first, for the students. We've got 500,000 students in the K-12 sector. That's a workforce that we need to ensure is on the right path.
So when Diane was saying what she said a second ago, it brought a grin to my face because I had a conversation with her predecessor here about a year and a half ago. We had a little bit of a competition going. And he said, we're really pleased you're upping your training in BC because we're going to need more people in the oil sands. I said, no, you don't understand. This is, we're going to train them and we're going to come and steal some of yours.
Right.
So,
We're going to continue to do that, right?
actually, and that leads into the next question from the audience, which I think is a good one, is it really is about, I guess, setting the table. So the question is, what is going to be done to educate the high school counselor on trades opportunities? Counselors, after all, are academics.
Well, and we have talked about this, Minister Verk-Bond and myself and Minister Rustad, when we talk about we need to re-educate our educators. There are existing educators that we need to retrain, excuse me. But more importantly, at the post-secondary level, we have to train teachers differently for the future. The other thing we have to do is to put the right people in the right seats. And unfortunately, I think one of the challenges we have is very often counselors in our high schools and in our schools are not trained for the reality of the marketplace, and we need to do that.
Thanks, Peter. And there were two more questions from the audience. One about how we would coordinate our training and timeframes with Alberta, and the other was to do with the boom and bust cycle. But they just, you can't see it here, but I've got this stopwatch clock in front of me, and it tells me how many minutes and seconds I've got left. So I'm going to pose one last question to each panelist, and I would welcome you to try and keep it within some time frame. I will notionally maybe allow you to go a little over, but I know I get in trouble with my staff if I go too far outside the box. So question is, final thoughts from each of you. Where do we go from here? I'll start with Diane.
I think where we go from here is to continue what we're doing, to be able to have the dialogues, making sure that we're aware of what are the needs that we want to have as we build our economies individually and collectively, and really work to build in collaboration, especially on the labor force. That's the #1 issue for all of us, I think, facing us in Western Canada. So how do we make sure that we're working together, but also on the federal level to do the attraction of the workers that we need as well, and to help us with the infrastructure, because we are supplying a great deal for our provinces, but we're also supplying a great deal to the federal budget and to the nation. And so collectively, I think as 3 Western provinces working together in collaboration can really make us greater economies for the nation.
Thanks. John?
Well, I think where we go for here is to continue actually with a lot of the work that's been done. For First Nations in particular on the training side, we need to continue to reach out, we need to continue to build that relationship, but we continue to need to have that conversation about how we can make sure it works. For liquefied natural gas, we will not be successful in terms of an industry unless we really consider the partnerships that need to be built, and to make sure that the prosperity and training and the jobs can be shared and can become a significant change and a significant part of the future for First Nations. So, I think we're on the right track. We got a lot more work to do as this progresses, but part of this re-engineering the education and the part of what we're doing in terms of the reach out and our government-to-government relations, I think, is helping to set the stage for that.
Thanks, John. Peter?
Well, I think we need to take the blueprint we've developed and make it real. It is not a static thing, it's a growing document. We're going to move ahead. We have a 10-year strategy, not a short-term strategy. LNG is immediate and great, but we have a 10-year strategy. We need to build on that. We need to deliver results, and we need to encourage our young people to realize what great opportunities we have, and the partnerships with industry are absolutely critical for that.
Thank you. Amrik? Given you
Richard, this
the
is
big
all
number
about,
in front of you?
it's all about partnerships. It's about this room, that we have one educational system in British Columbia, whether that's private or public, and it's working with this room, it's working with industry to make sure it's time to deliver on all those promises we made. So it's absolutely a commitment to listen and have that listening inform what we're doing.
Thank you. Shirley?
It's all hands on deck. It's everyone we can engage. It's talking to parents about opportunities for their kids. It's about working with our federal and provincial colleagues, with industry, and bringing organized labor to the table, talking to the men and women who build British Columbia. Couldn't be more excited about it. It's time to, we put the blueprint in place. It's time to deliver.
Well, thank you, all of you, and if this was a legislative assembly, the mics would go dead. The speaker would cut us off. But you all did very well, and thank you. Excellent discussion and getting through the questions that were in front of you. I want to thank all the panel for participating, and I want to thank all of you for coming today and taking the time to participate with us, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.